He's the founder of Henderson's advocacy. He started in 2020 and has since built one of the most respected buyers agency in the business. Jack is a serial property investor and has built a property portfolio of 26 mil by the age of 26. He's the flamingo bringing a fresh voice to the real estate industry. Please put your hands together for Jack Henderson.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about starting up and standing out. And I'm not sure if anyone's seen the media over the last sort of 48 hours, but I was crowned on Monday an agent of influence by the beautiful people over at Four Corners at ABC. I'm going to talk about the why first, and this is a quote, I should say, from one of my digital mentors in Gary Vaynerchuk, and it says there's two ways to build the biggest building in the world. You can either build the biggest building or you can tear everyone else's buildings down. I think before we run through the who, the what, the how, I've built what I have in the short period of time. My whys are my biggest drivers. So supporting my parents to have the best retirement possible and to build the most impactful luxury property advisory, development and fund in the world are my big drivers. And when shit hits the fan and things get a little bit tough, you get some bad media, you lose a listing, things are not going your way, this is the stuff that keeps you on the path. Tom Panos was just asking me before, he said, mate, how have you been sleeping over the last 48 hours? I said, mate, sleeping fine. Because at the end of the day, these are the two things that matter and everything else is just noise. In 2013, I was expelled from school. I was 15 years old. 7 years I worked in the construction and mining industry. That top left photo of me next to my grader was my last day in the mining industry. That bottom left-hand corner was my first vision board that I did. I wanted to write $350,000 in GCI. I wanted to hire my mum as my first employee. I wanted to have a $10 million property portfolio. And I wanted to start the Henderson Group. The top photo was my first ever deal. As you can see, that's what I usually wear. I wear shorts and a t-shirt. I don't wear a suit. And in 2020, I started in real estate. I started under another brand. I didn't work as an associate. I worked in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and still do, which is obviously one of the most prestige markets in Australia. I didn't grow up there. I grew up in northwest Sydney, about 30 minutes past where Josh Tesolin sells, in a place called Wilberforce. My first deal wasn't in the eastern suburbs. It wasn't a $10 million home. It was a $700,000 townhouse in a suburb called Kellyville, to a beautiful young family, but it was a starting point that then allowed me to have the confidence to know that I was on the right path. 1 year later, after I was sacked from the people that I was working for, I bet everything I had to say, I'll make it. I started my own brand with my business partner, Mark Kempwell, and co-founded Henderson Advocacy. And that photo there was our first office in Regent Street, Paddington, and I was shooting content. Now, in 2020, I started in the industry. Like I said, I wanted to write 350, I wrote 750. From day one, I didn't hire an associate. I hired a full-time videographer. Mr. Joel, he's right there. He wasn't my first videographer. Sam Black, who's sitting in the crowd now, who runs my Newcastle team, was. And the reason that I did that is because my perspective is it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. And the fastest way for people to know who I was to make sure that I was in everyone's face, like Josh was talking about before. Now, we don't have signboards when we buy properties. We can't do letterbox drops. We can't, ring all the vendors in the street and say, we just bought this property, because not everyone is buying property. So I thought, how can I get in people's faces on a daily basis in a marketplace where I didn't grow up, I know nobody, and it was to hire a videographer. At the end of that year, like I said, I was sacked. I had a coach at the time, and I said, Jeff, what do I have to do for the next year to dramatically change my business? And he said, mate, get off the piss. Go sober. So I thought, all right, I like to drink, I like to party. It was a big deal. In 2021, we wrote 3.1 mil. Obviously a very, very good marketplace. And what I found in that year was what allowed us to do that was all the momentum we built in 2020, all the brand recognition we built, compounded into 2021. We had a very, very good year. We had very, very good branding. Marty Fox from White Fox did our branding. And naturally, it flowed on last year, 4.5 this year, aim is 10. Now, not everyone knows what buyers advocates are. I understand not everyone works in metropolitan marketplaces, and in metro markets, obviously, buyers advocates are the most common. So for our clients, the 5, I guess, avenues or the 5 value adds we commonly hear when people come to us is time. A lot of people search for a very, very long time. 9 months in the markets is the average time people search for us. Ours is 42 days. Relationships. Obviously, in a marketplace where there's 30 real estate agents, it's very, very hard for a buyer to know all of those people. Access to stock, sort of 80+% of what we buy is off market. Asset selection with investors, obviously. A lot of people, don't understand what makes a good investment property. And then obviously the negotiation piece. But the 2 which are going to add the most amount of value, I think, to the agents in the room is the market and the agents. Obviously in the marketplace, having buyers that are represented. Tim just said, obviously at auctions, when you've got agents that are working with the buyers to get them to bid, to give them confidence, that's what we do. We get our buyers into the marketplace. They're qualified. They have their finance. They know what they're looking for. They're not wasting time inspecting properties that are wasting their time. And efficiency, so making sure they're in and out of the marketplace quickly. But what we work with agents, and I think more agents from my perspective should do it, is a lot of buyers don't sell until they buy. So if the average search time is 9 months, and you're nurturing that vendor for 9 months, why not work with buyers advocates, refer them to buyers advocates, so buyers advocates can help your vendors buy property to get you in the door and sell their property. By doing that, it also keeps the business sticky. Most times, when a buyer goes out there into the marketplace and they buy a property through a certain agent, those agents usually have leverage to then list that property. So you lose the relationship to that agent. In our business, when they refer us to a buyer and we buy for them, that agent keeps the business. And then property management growth. Naturally, when you refer a buyer to a buyer's advocate, you have a good relationship, they buy an investment property. Usually, when a buyer buys through a certain agency, they keep the property management. But obviously, when we get referred buyers, that property management goes back into the business of the agent that referred it. Now, building the business and building my brand. So when I started the business, there was 3 key things which we worked on, which was the brand awareness, how we acquired our clients, and the culture and the energy of our company. So brand awareness is one of the most important things, I believe, because without brand awareness and without people knowing who you are, no one knows who you are. And if no one knows who you are, no one's going to do business with you. So leveraging social platforms, understanding where the underpriced attention is. TikTok, for example, which was for kids 12 months ago. You could post a video on TikTok today. No one knows who you are. Could be an agent, could be walking through the door of a property, doing a video walkthrough, and you could get 2 million views with no followers. That's what we leveraged. Our client acquisition with buyers advocates and our business, the majority of it up until I guess we started was referrals. So obviously you have good relationships with agents, you get referred clients, and obviously you buy for them. But there's naturally a limit to that because not everyone is out there and in everyone's face, and obviously not everyone's going to get referrals on a regular basis. So we wanted to create a business where we had enough brand awareness that we didn't need superstars out the front who were getting all the referrals. So spending money, like Josh was saying, on what is your Google strategy? What is your social strategy? How are you acquiring clients through things like Facebook and Instagram? So having a funnel which is 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 fishing rods out there which can bring business in when you're sleeping. And then the culture and the energy of our team, which is something that I continue to work on every single day. Now I get to the office and my team, I feel some days wants it better than I do, and that's what I love. And if anyone who's building a business at the moment, they understand how hard it is to find people that are aligned to your journey, your just cause, as Simon Sinek calls it. So building a team and a culture that is all on the same path, I think is critical. Now, building my own brand was all about leverage, it was about networking, and it was about standing out from the crowd and being authentic. So the market that I wanted to work in was the prestige market, $3 to $5 million plus. Like I said, it was in a marketplace where I didn't grow up, And I thought from a very young age, how the fuck do I get to meet people who have properties worth $3 to $5 million and I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid? So a story. I had a mentor, his name was Chris Gray. Before he was my mentor, I thought, how do I meet this guy? I saw him on YouTube, saw him on podcast, or listened to him on podcast. Added him on Facebook. They put a post up and they had a share in a boat. They were selling half of their share in the boat. And I thought, okay, I haven't got the money. I got a personal loan of 20 grand, bought into the boat. All of a sudden now, I own a share in a boat with Chris Gray. Naturally, what that led on to is meeting the network that Chris Gray has. The networking piece, again, lots of people, obviously we drive fancy cars, it's real estate, everyone likes to drive nice things. I've got a nice car, but I use it for networking ability. So there's a lot of supercar rallies around Sydney. There's supercar clubs, for example. That's where my clients hang out, so that's where I go. So, I have a nice car. Most people see it as a liability. I see it as an asset, because if I can go and hang out with people who have homes and are buying properties worth millions and millions of dollars, that's where I want to be. And then obviously standing out from the crowd. And I think standing out from the crowd, for me, is all about being authentic. So being authentic to yourself, and that's what makes you stand out. So this is our marketing and prospecting strategy. Like I said, we market a little bit differently. Over the last 3 months on TikTok organically, I've got 3.4 million video views. We've reached almost 2 million people. On Instagram organically, we've reached almost 400,000 people. And everyone always says to me, how the fuck do you create all the content you create? And as you can see from those little snippets down there, they're not all beautifully polished pieces like I'll get from Joel. So it's all about documenting, not creating, like Josh does, doing your market wraps, for example, walking through properties and pointing things out to people, helping people understand what's happening in the marketplace, what interest rates mean. Just document what's happening in the market every single day, and that's your content. And you want to be where the underpriced attention is. Facebook's very saturated, and when you spend on Facebook, it's very good. But if you don't have the budget, TikTok, for example, which not a lot of people use, has a huge amount of reach. It's 3.5 million people in 90 days. So being where the underpriced attention is, and then obviously when you're on those platforms, being authentic to yourself. People don't want to see just another real estate agent. They want to see you. They want to understand your story, and that's what I think is critical. We use the flamingo in a lot of our marketing, as you can see. In the middle there, we've got a property book. Now, most property people who are like myself, they usually have an investment book, and it's all about how good they are. What I realized is the majority of our clients have kids, and I'm not a father, but I know when you look after people's kids, they usually like you. So I wrote a children's book, well, I didn't, my marketing team did. It's called Hender-ingo, the Property Flamingo. Hender-ingo helps a family of lions in the jungle find their dream home. When I meet with people, virtually or in person, I get their address and I send them a kid's book for their kids with a handwritten note. How much weight do you reckon that holds? We then leverage that. We've got a podcast, for example. Again, this is all about the leverage piece. So where are my prospective clients? My prospective clients usually run successful businesses. Successful businesses have an interesting story. So I started a podcast which allows me to talk to those people. Obviously, if you reach out to someone and say, hey, can I have a coffee with you? They probably get that 20 times a day. When you reach out to someone and say, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? Naturally, they're a little bit more inclined, and then you obviously start to build that relationship. Top left is obviously some of the signboards that we do. Again, probably may not appeal to everyone, but appeals to some people. And then Hender-ingo. And I think the last thing that I want to touch on is investing in yourself, your business, and your future. Emil Juresic said it incredibly well at the start. We all work in this industry. Top performers earn a significant amount of money when you compare it to the majority of other industries, but a lot of people don't do anything with that money. And what investing in yourself does is obviously makes you more intelligent, gives you better skills, allows you to earn more money. So that's the first thing that I would invest in if you're starting from a baseline. Investing in your business, I think, is obviously critical. A lot of people talk about investing in shares and all this other stuff, but there won't be a greater ROI you'll get on your money than investing in your business and yourself, and then your future. So with property. Now, the great thing when I transitioned from being a miner or a construction worker to being in real estate is I had already 3 assets behind me. I had equity, which was a safety net to know that if this doesn't work out, at least I've got my property. So by using your income, investing in assets, you continue to work, but eventually you'll get to a point where you don't need to work or you don't want to work, and the only way that you're going to get there is by investing ahead of the curve. So using your income, I believe in specialization over diversification. So if you're an expert in your marketplace, you know what a good deal is, you know what a bad deal is, that's where I would invest. I wouldn't invest in Queensland or markets that you maybe don't understand if you're from New South Wales. And then the book at the bottom is the Flamingo Way. So I wrote a book about my story, the way we invest, and we got Hender-ingo here. Here he is, the big guy. So I hope that added value. The Flamingo to me is all about standing out, being authentic, and there's actually a real estate agent there. That's how tough the marketplace is. Thank you.